Brian D'Souza here with Jon-Taine Hall, who's fighting Arjan Bhuller at Hard Knocks 44. John, how's it going?
Good.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your training, how you prepared for this guy.
Well, I prepare for all my fights, basically the same. I work on my strong suits and also my weaknesses as well. And then, toward the end of, training camps, we start to, tailor everything, for that specific opponent. So I need to be sharp on, all my good things and all my weaknesses to make sure that those things aren't exploited. Because, I'm watching video on him, I know he's watching video on me, so I need to continue to be good at what I'm good at, continue to get better at what I need to be better at, and tailor my game, to him and what he may or may not do. And also, potential holes in my game that he may try to take advantage of.
Okay. So you're fighting Arjan Bhuller, who's a noted Olympic wrestler, was in London 2012, Commonwealth Games gold medalist. Is there any pressure because of the game he's going to bring?
He could try to wrestle me. Who knows? He could try to strike. That's probably something that could throw other people off. But me, I'm prepared for anything that he wants to do, whether he wants to stand, whether he wants to go down. I would love it if he tried to do jiu-jitsu. But whatever he does, I'm going to be ready for. And basically, I'm going to impose my will on him no matter where we're at, whether it's on the feet or on the ground. Being an Olympic wrestler, that's great and everything, but I believe that having such a long line of jiu-jitsu people behind me who've taught me this sport over the past 7 years, I believe that that's more important for fighting than wrestling. Because wrestling, the goal of wrestling is basically to immobilize your opponent and really not to harm them, just to immobilize them. Jiu-jitsu, the object of it is to make the person submit to your will by physical discomfort. So I believe that that right there will lend itself more to finishing a fight than wrestling. So I'm sure he'll try to use his wrestling because he's really good at it. But I don't think that it will really affect my game any, because if he doesn't get me to the ground, that's where I want to be.
All right. Tell me a little bit about your accomplishments in jiu-jitsu.
Well, in jiu-jitsu, throughout the years, I've accomplished many things. I've, won many trips to many places all over the world, Vegas several times, California several times, Italy. I've also won trips to Abu Dhabi, and I was in the World Pro this year in Abu Dhabi, took third place. I took third place in Miami for the 80cc Pro. I've placed first in Pan Am's. As a purple belt, I placed second in the Worlds. No-gi is purple belt. And the list goes on. Many-time Grappler's Quest champion. IBJJF champion for Toronto, Montreal, so many years running. So yeah, my jiu-jitsu accomplishments are very long and very well noted. Pretty much everyone knows me for the guy who goes and actually submits people. I don't play a game where just trying to control the guy and win by a point advantage. For me, jiu-jitsu is about submission. So every time I step on the mat, I want to finish the person. I want it to be a decisive victory, because for me, that's the whole purpose of jiu-jitsu. And if you're not doing that, you're not really doing jiu-jitsu. You're probably wrestling, more than jiu-jitsu.
Okay, very interesting. Tell me a little about your amateur fights. You've had a few of those.
Yeah, I've had basically 4 amateur fights, 3 wins, no losses, and 1 no contest. And with my amateur fights, my first fight, basically I beat the person on the feet, and that caused the fight to go to the ground after I dropped him several times. And from there, I do what I do best. I submitted him. For my second fight, that one was first one was in Michigan, second fight was in Virginia. With that fight, I went against a striker and a wrestler. I believe he was more of a wrestler than a striker. He managed to get me to the ground, and I got back up and kept on working my game. Second round, I used my striking to get the fight to the ground and submitted him quickly. My third fight was a no contest. The guy said that he got poked in the eye, but it's still questionable if he did or not. So we had a rematch, and the rematch, it was basically a 3-round beat down till I finally submitted him in the first, second minute of the third round. With that, I used some striking and my wrestling, and finally my jiu-jitsu to put him away.
Okay. What I'm curious about is you're mixed between jits and MMA now. What's your goal in mixed martial arts, and does it converge or diverge from your goals in jiu-jitsu?
Well, funny thing is, my primary reason for doing jiu-jitsu was for MMA, because when I first decided that I wanted to fight MMA, I didn't want to be one of those guys who have been striking for 10, 15 years and end up getting beat by somebody who's been doing jiu-jitsu for 6 months. So I thought that, you know what, let me go try some jiu-jitsu classes and see how it is. That way I can defend against what people might try to do to me. Maybe I might pick up a few moves, and hey, if I like it, I might stick with it for 6 months or a year and get a black belt. It's not that quick. It took a lot longer for me to even get to a brown belt level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. To be very proficient at something, you have to do it for a very long time. And for me, I've done it so long that it's not something I think about. It's something that's automatic, like riding a bike or swimming. My body just knows what to do. And I can also think as I'm doing it, which is something that not everyone can do. They may go by muscle memory, but they miss the thinking element of it to create things as they happen, because every situation isn't perfect as you've practiced. So when you're actually in that position, you may have to be a little imaginative to make it work. And that's one thing I've been really good at as well. So I've been able to get a lot of submissions from odd places, and people are in awe, like, how did you get that from there? I'm like, hey, I just made it up as I went along, because I have the feel for it. It's like a painter. He may just go, not know what he wants to draw, and as he's going, he's like, hey, let me put some birds here. Oh, I'm a mountain. So for me, basically, whether I'm on the mat for jiu-jitsu or I'm in the cage for MMA, that's just my tapestry. I'm creating art in there. And for me, everything has to be finished. I don't feel right if it's not. So, and I as somebody's actually able to escape without me submitting them, I feel that I've lost, that somebody was actually able to stand up to me. But I've had really good training from Professor Jorge Britto, and he's given me an excellent base in jiu-jitsu. And when he first immersed me in jiu-jitsu, he told me to forget my wrestling temporarily to learn jiu-jitsu. And when I learn it, then combine that with my wrestling to be more of a force, and it's worked beautifully. And for MMA, finally, that now I'm ready to go in. I feel that now that when I fight, I can go undefeated for a very long time, instead of maybe I win in one fight, I lose one, I won two, lost one. I didn't want to be one of those hot and cold fighters. And I think that's also very good too, because some people who try to get into MMA too quickly, they end up getting severely hurt because they don't understand the severity of some of the submissions that are utilized. So a lot of people get their knees torn off because they don't know how bad heel hooks are, or they don't know how bad knee bars are, or arm bars, and it puts them out for a long time, and they spend more time recovering than they do fighting, and that doesn't lead to a very long or healthy career. So I believe now that I've learned enough that I can go in there, I can fight, I can keep myself safe, and I can win. So for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I became proficient at that so I can be good at this. So have you ever heard the saying that, if you want to win games, you have to get beaten in practice so you can learn to win in the games? And for me, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has been my practice, for this big stage. So I've become very proficient in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I love it, and that's one, the biggest reason why I've continued to do it, because I just fell in love with it. But now that I feel that my skill sets in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu are at a world level, I'm ready to take it to the big stage and fight MMA.
What I'm also curious about, what really got you in the gym in the first place? You mentioned some wrestling. What's your wrestling background, and what made you decide that you wanted to do MMA?
Well, my wrestling background was high school wrestling, but after high school, I mean, you have basically, two choices after that, which is like college or, Olympic wrestling. Other than that, there's really nothing for you. And before I dedicated myself to fighting MMA, I was actually studying engineering, and I was about 2 years into it before I dropped out and said, hey, you know what, I'm like 268 pounds, I'm putting on a ton of weight. I always told myself I wanted to go fight in the UFC, but I'm not making any moves to go there. It's just a dream, and everything in your life is just going to be a dream. It's just going to be out of grasp till you actually start taking the first steps toward it. So I came to the decision that, you know what, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna start training, and I'm gonna get in the UFC, and I'm gonna be a champion. And the thing is, it's like when I came up with that game plan, it wasn't all completely like thought out perfectly. So I'm just like, like how am I gonna go do this? I need to find a good place. So I'm just like, okay, let's see how some MMA gyms, and I took a look at the MMA gyms and stuff, and a lot of people were heavy on the striking and stuff, and as I was doing like more research and seeing more and more fights, I was like, oh man, it's like striking is good and everything, but I mean, I see a lot of these guys just winning on the ground, and a lot of these good strikers are losing to grapplers. Like maybe I should go find a good grappling gym. So I started researching more about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, especially since I knew Royce Gracie had won the first UFCs with it. And as I started doing more and more research on it, I was like, this is really interesting. So I started looking at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gyms and in Toronto, and lo and behold, one of the first results were Toronto BJJ. So I started to go downtown and look at that gym. For me, I didn't like how far it was from Scarborough, but I took the trip down there anyways. And when I actually came in the gym and saw the place, I'm just like, oh man, like I think this is a good place for me. And I spoke to the instructors for striking as well as the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I tried a couple classes, and really I was like hooked. So basically what happened is I didn't come back for a year. I finished up that last year of school, and came back, and I walked to the door and be like, hey, I'm ready to sign up. And I'm like, being away for a year and nobody ever remembered me. It's like, hey, you don't want to try a free trial first, or do no, just sign me up right now, I'm ready to go. Like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. So I started right away, and once I started, I was basically wrestling my way through the classes, and George, which is George probably like maybe 160 pounds, and at the time I was probably like 245, 248, and he was always telling me like, hey, stop wrestling. He's like, you're not learning anything. Try the moves that we've been doing. And I'm like, why do I need to do those moves? I'm like, I'm beating them by wrestling anyways. He's like, you're not beating them. He's like, all you're doing is holding them down. He's like, jiu-jitsu is not wrestling. It's not about holding a person down. It's about making them surrender to your will. And it's like, okay, if you say so. But I mean, it was hard for me to do the moves because I wouldn't be winning. So it's like, hey, let me go back to what I'm good at. And finally George is like, hey, come here. He's like, come roll with me. I'm like, dude, you're like half my weight. He's like, oh, come on. He's like humoring me then. I'm like, fine. So I start rolling with him, and like I'm holding the guy down, and he's like slipping out, being all wormy and stuff. I'm like, man, this guy's hard to hold. Next thing I know, he's like wrapping his legs around my neck. I'm just like, what is this? I'm like, I see this stuff on TV. This stuff doesn't work. Until everything starts going white, and fading to black. It's like, oh man, it's like this stuff really does work. It's like this guy almost put me out with that. And then next thing, he's putting me in arm bars and things that I didn't even know what to call them. And basically I became just exhausted just from defending myself from this little guy. So after, he beat me, he told me like, hey, he's like, like, see what I did to you using jiu-jitsu? He's like, as big as strong as you are, imagine what you could do if you learned it. Like, from that moment forth, I stopped wrestling, and I started trying to practice everything that he taught me. And these guys kicked my butt for the first few weeks till I was able to actually find a little groove and able to actually work some things. But George was really the one that got me focused on doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then I got hooked, and for me, it's just like, it's something I have to do. It's like, when you are so in love with something, like, man, I have to do that. I have to withdraw if I don't come to the gym. So I was doing that basically on and off, because I still went back to school and did some more work, but then I'll come back and do jiu-jitsu, and I kept on going back and forth till I finally find a time where I could finally settle down here in Canada, because originally I came from the States. So I finally settled down and kept on working on my game and stuff and looking for fights. And for me, finding fights was terribly hard. And amateur, I could not find a fight in probably like a year and a half. In Canada, nobody would fight me. I actually had to go to the States for my first amateur fights, and I won all those. Then when I decided to go pro, and I tried to get pro fights last year, no one fight me again. I ran into the same issues. And finally, I was able to find this fight with Arjan, and I fight at 205. This one is actually at heavyweight, because he's the only guy that'll fight me. So it's a heavyweight fight. I'm like, hey, I'll take it. So I I'm just going to fight at what I'm walking around at. And for me, I don't feel intimidated, because with jiu-jitsu, it's made to take out larger people with ease. So I feel confident no matter how big the person is. And even in sport jiu-jitsu and other competitions, no-gi competitions, I fought people way bigger than 300 pounds. So I know that I can handle myself against a heavyweight.
All right. So what does the future hold after this fight? You're going to continue building towards the goal of being in a major organization and just getting bigger and better wins?
Well, there are a lot of great organizations out there that I would love a chance to fight for, and after this fight, I'd love to keep on moving up the ladder and fighting for good organizations. For me, MMA is a dream that I want to fulfill, because all my life I've been doing fighting sports. So after school and college, it's like there's nothing else for me to do. But for me right now, I'm 35, but I'm not feeling it, and I think it's because I'm staying active doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, mostly. So I also attribute that for keeping me young, keeping me healthy, and I want to use that for as long as I can and take it to the highest levels. So after this fight, I'm definitely going to fight again, hopefully this year. I'd like to fight again, within the next few months, and keep on racking up wins. If I can find a fight at 205, great. If not, see if somebody will fight me heavyweight. So I mean, I might even have to go down to 185, but I definitely will continue to fight and keep on letting the world know how great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is and how useful it is in the real world and real self-defense.
All right. Thanks a lot, John. Good luck with your fight.
Thank you. He's going to need it.